Welcome to the All-Star Athlete Podcast, your guide to mastering the mental game and reaching your full potential.
If you've been listening to the podcast and you've found the episodes to be informative and or interesting, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. I will be releasing episodes weekly, so subscribing to the podcast is the best way to stay up to speed on when the new episodes are released and to make sure that you don't miss any of the content. Also, liking each episode, if you have in fact been enjoying the content, as well as leaving any questions or comments that you may have down below, also go a long way in supporting the podcast. So thank you so much for listening and enjoy the show. We'll sort of formally get into the interview questions in a moment here. I just, for my sake, would like to say, it's nice to meet you. I understand you went to Chico State, right?
Did, yes.
What semester did you start?
At Chico?
Yeah.
It was...
Do you recall?
I played seasons 22, 23. 23, 24. Yeah, so those 2 years, those 2 seasons.
Okay. So I graduated with my master's degree from Chico State in May. I think it was May. It was May of 2022. So we must have just missed each other by a semester or something.
Just barely.
Okay. And you sent me kind of a long description. You played at a bunch of different colleges as well. Yeah. And what ultimately ended up having the decision to go to Chico?
It's actually funny. So the head coach, Brian, recruited me out of my junior college. I even went on a visit to Chico, the whole nine, and obviously ultimately decided not to go to Chico. And so a few years down the road, injuries, COVID, all that and whatnot, I ended up in the portal again after not having really played in a game for 3 seasons. And Coach Brian was the only coach that hit me up. And honestly, it brought me to tears in a sense of I was entering the portal just hoping to get something. I mean, there's not a lot of coaches that are willing to take a risk on a player who hasn't been playing in 3 years.
Right.
And so I was just super grateful for it. He was the only one that reached out to me. And so I was just really grateful for that. And so ultimately that was the reason why I went to Chico. Ended up being a great decision, obviously. But yeah, so super grateful for Brian. And it just meant a lot to me to know that somebody still believed in me despite what I had gone through, despite me not playing. He just knew somehow, some way that I was still working on my game. He still knew that I could still play at a high level. He just believed in me. So forever indebted to him for him to allow me to continue my basketball career.
Okay. And at that time, were you still, because you were in the master's program, right?
At Long Beach, I was in a master's program.
Okay. Were you in the master's program at all at Chico as well? Or you just were there to play? You were?
Yes. So when I transferred from Long Beach to Chico, I had to enter a new master's program, which honestly ended up being the best thing ever because at Long Beach, I was in a master's program kind of just for the sake of being in one, where when I transferred to Chico, not only was I able to play, but I was also in a master's program that I genuinely liked and loved being a part of because I ultimately do want to end up coaching. And so the fact that they had a master's degree in kinesiology, emphasis in coaching and sports psychology, that was music to my ears. It was something that I really wanted to do. And so I ended up just playing out.
Yeah, that's really cool, actually. When I transferred into Chico State, because I did my undergrad at Cal State East Bay, I knew that I wanted to do kinesiology, but I didn't know that sports psychology was an option. I thought I wanted to go into strength and conditioning or something like that. I'm a personal trainer. That's my full-time thing right now. And I've started the podcast and the All-Star Mindset, my mental performance coaching business. That was after I graduated from Chico State. But I didn't know about sports psychology really actually until I got to Chico State and found out that sport and exercise psychology was one of the major options. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool because I've always been into mental health and for my own, for no other reason than for my own sake, I've always wanted to learn about my own mental health and how can I be better. And I've always been into sports. I didn't play sports at the college level, but I played up through high school, and I'm a big basketball fan, for example, like watching the NBA Finals right now. You're probably watching the NBA Finals, if I had to guess, all through the NBA playoffs. So I thought that was really cool when I got to Chico State and they had that major option. I was like, oh, it's the perfect hybrid of what I like to do. So it sounds like for you, did you know that coaching and sports psychology was a major option before you got there, or did you find out after you got there?
It wasn't until after I got there for me to, because like I said, I want to coach eventually. And so I don't really know what level per se. I do know I want to coach at the college level, but I don't know NAIA, D1, D2, junior college. But at the junior college level, you need to have a master's in kinesiology, which is funny because at the university level, you don't need that. But at the junior college, you do because they expect you to teach classes. So going into it, getting my master's in kinesiology, I thought that I had to get it in ex-phys or something in that general area for me to be able to teach at the junior college level. But then after having a couple conversations with some junior college coaches, even Dr. Newland, and everything, we found out that you just need a master's in kinesiology. It doesn't really matter the emphasis. So she kind of pushed me to pick an option that I was going to be passionate about instead of just something that I thought that I needed. And so then I changed it. I was originally ex-phys, and so then I changed it to coaching and sports psych. That's because that's where my passion lies, especially with the time that I've had as an athlete and the effects that I've had with mental health and certain things and mental performance. So that's what led me to choose that option.
Okay. Well, you probably got along well with Dr. Newland then, because she's a big basketball fan, and she's in, her emphasis obviously is on coaching as well as sports psychology. So I'm sure the two of you had a lot of great conversations about basketball and sports and coaching, right?
Yes, Dr. Newland, she has become one of my favorite people.
Yeah, me too. She actually did an episode on this podcast. I don't know if you were aware of that or not, but maybe something for you to go back and check out at some point. Yeah, we did an episode and kind of just collaborated on, because she does some mental performance coaching as well. So we were kind of talking about how she approaches mental performance coaching, and then kind of the crossover from the academic to the applied, right? Mm-hmm. Because mental performance coaching, or coaching, right? If we're not even talking about the mental side, like you want to be a basketball coach, right, there's a lot of crossover between the applied work of any kind of coach and the research side of things. Right. And so she was kind of sharing her experiences on that episode about how she really likes to formulate kind of her hypotheses and her research projects around questions that she comes across when she's coaching. And she wants to see, okay, well, in like a research setting, am I going to run into the same kind of things that I would in an actual applied setting, and then vice versa, and how the two of those things kind of inform each other and make them both better. So I have no doubt that you having a background in kinesiology with an emphasis on coaching, you probably did some research projects. That's really going to inform your ability to be a better coach on the applied side.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
I'd like to kind of formally get into our interview. Welcome to the show. I'll have you introduce yourself briefly after we do the pregame questions. I like to do a little pregame segment, a little icebreaker, fun questions, get to know you. We'll also do a little halftime break, same kind of thing. And in between there, we'll talk about your basketball journey, your mental performance skills that you use, any struggles that you've had along the way, and so forth.
Sounds good.
So let's hop right into it. We got our first 5 pregame questions here. I'd like to ask you, before tip-off of any game, but maybe tomorrow, you said you have a game tomorrow, right?
Yes.
So before tip-off, your secret snack stash is exposed. What's in there, and what's going to make your teammates jealous, but if you had a team nutritionist, they might be cringing a little bit?
So I love Gatorade juice. I'm not sure if that's something that a nutritionist would like or dislike, but those are like my favorite things in the world. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They're like little gummy snacks.
Not specifically, I can get kind of a visual of it in my mind's eye because I work at a gym and we have kind of like these little, they're basically just sugar chews, I guess you could say, like Starbursts under another brand name maybe, or what are those? Did you ever have Gushers when you were a kid? Like, pack little Gushers in your lunchbox. I'm always reminded of those snacks like Dunkaroos and Gushers and Fruit Roll Up and all that kind of stuff. So I think probably Gatorade chews are similar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the nutritionist might not love those, but I mean, also you and I both know that carbs are super important for athletic performance. So very functional, I would say. Anything in there that might be a little bit more like candy, or you kind of not, are you pretty healthy?
I'm overall pretty healthy. If I'm going to have like a very sweet snack or like I have a big sweet tooth for like chocolate, like cupcakes, cake kind of thing. But I don't see myself doing like eating any of that before a game though. So I will say that.
Probably
Maybe
not.
After.
Okay.
Maybe after.
For sure. Are you more likely to be eating cupcakes after a win or after a loss?
Oh, after a win.
After a win. Oh, okay. All right.
Rating a win. After a loss, I probably feel like I don't deserve the cupcake. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, it could go either way, right? Like I could see it like after a loss, you're like just kind of in your emotions a little bit, like, oh my God, like I'm just gonna eat this cupcake, help me feel better. So definitely. Okay, cool. All right. Second question. So for this one, you get to team up with any basketball player, past or present, could be male or female, totally up to you, right? For a 2-on-2 playground match. Okay, so you're out on the blacktop. Who is your ride or die, and who is absolutely not making your squad no matter what?
Okay, so my first initial response to that would be Sue Bird, because she's just my favorite player of all time. But we're both point guards, so I think I'm gonna have to go with a bigger player. So I'm gonna say Nafisa Collier. I think she's absolutely amazing. She's very versatile. She's tall. She can finish at the rim. She shoots threes. So I'd say Nafisa Collier, hands down.
Okay.
And then I would say a player that I probably wouldn't necessarily choose. I'm gonna say Angel Reese, just because her finishing around the rim could be questionable at times. I love the tenacity. I love how she gets after it. But I think somebody like Nafisa Collier is just a little bit more efficient. So
okay, that's fair. Yeah, the whole Angel Reese thing, Caitlin Clark, that's a very big controversial topic. I'm sure if you're on TikTok or Instagram, you've seen, like, I mean, it's kind of a meme at this point. To your point, Angel Reese is like finishing around the rim and the whole stat padding thing and all that. So
yeah,
you're right. Like the tenacity is definitely there, but you probably want somebody that's a little bit more efficient. Maybe if you're playing on the playground, like, exactly. I don't think that there necessarily would be anything wrong with picking, for example, Sue Bird. Like you could, I mean, if you're on the playground, yeah, it might be nice to have a big, for example, but like if you two can both shoot the lights out, like the other team's not even going to get the ball.
Very true.
So, okay, nice. Next one, very vanilla here, but tell us a little bit about what your favorite Disney movie is and why.
I'm a Disney kid. I love everything Disney, but I'm going to go with Hercules. I think a lot of people would probably say, because I like Lion King, I like the OG Disney movies, but there's just something about Hercules. If I want to watch a Disney movie, I always pick Hercules. And I think there's just something about the movie where he's kind of like an underdog in the beginning. He's trying to find himself. He's trying to find, he just wants to be the best he can be. And then I think ultimately he figures out that, obviously at the end of the movie, it's more about your decision making, about who you are as a person. Obviously he puts somebody else before himself. And so there's obviously it's a kid's movie, but I do feel like there's deeper meaning behind it. And so, yeah, I just love Hercules.
Would you say you kind of identify with Hercules' story, like his plot?
Yeah, I think so, a little bit, for sure. Like I said, kind of like he's a demigod, but he doesn't know that. He's just trying his best to make it. And obviously, like in ways he's blessed, but he works really hard. and ultimately becomes a god, And so I just love the story.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, I love Disney movies as well. My picks would probably be Lion King or Aladdin, I think. Kind of OG. Lion King was actually, funny story. Lion King was the first movie that I ever saw in movie theaters. I remember that.
Really?
Yeah. I went with my uncle, the cool uncle, right? Most people have like a cool uncle, the one that played sports with us, video games, movies, like, that kind of stuff. So I remember that. So Lion King's definitely one of my go-tos. The soundtrack in there specifically. So I think Lion King for sure. Okay, next question. Your coach accidentally gives you the auxiliary cable before the game. So you're up on set, right? DJing. What's the first song that you're blasting that gets you hyped, but would probably make your teammates roast you?
So for me, fun fact, I actually don't listen to music before games. I know a lot of athletes do, specifically basketball players. So, but if I am going to listen to music, I tend to kind of lean towards more chill type vibes. I just feel like that's the way that I perform my best, is just kind of being relaxed. And so the first song that kind of comes to my head would probably be something like Snooze by SZA, which would be like good for me, but everybody in the car would probably say like, this is not it, Brandy, like pick a different one. So, but that would be for me.
Okay, so they'd be sort of playfully roasting you because they're trying to get hyped up and you're trying to like chill out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Well, being with the sports psychology background and the zone of optimal performance, it sounds like probably are aware that if you're too hyped up, you're not going to be performing at your best. If your anxiety is a little too high, if your heart rate's going a little bit too much, your brain's going a million miles an hour, like that's not necessarily conducive to performing at your best. Sounds like you kind of need to slow things down a little bit, and that's better for you. And that's not better for everybody. So that's okay. Nice. Okay. So last question here, and then we'll get into kind of the main segment. You wake up on game day with a surprise new skill, but it has nothing to do with basketball. What is your random new talent, and are you using it to flex or confuse people?
My new talent would definitely be the ability to sing. And I would definitely flex that on people because I am incredibly jealous of those who can. And I actually had a teammate when I was playing overseas this past year. She was an incredible singer, and she could just sing with like just effortlessly singing along to a song or just whatever. And I just thought it's the most amazing ability or skill or whatever you want to call it to have. I think it's beautiful. And so yeah, I'd definitely pick that.
Okay. Would you say that you're artistic in any other way, or do you feel like you're just not very artistic, generally speaking?
I don't think I'm all that artistic. I guess another fun fact about me is that I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to love scrapbooking. So I guess that is a little artsy.
Yeah, I would say.
As of recently, I'd probably say not as much. And I think maybe that's why I admire it so much, is because I'm not super into the arts. And so when somebody is so talented in that realm, I'm just in awe by it.
Okay, that makes sense. All right. Nice. Okay, well let's kind of move into our main segment here. Again, we'll stop at halftime, kind of break things up. Sometimes these episodes can get a little bit heavy depending on what we're talking about, and it's kind of fun to break it up a little bit and talk about some different stuff. Get to know you, get to know me a little bit. I like to give the listeners a little bit of a little background into my life. So over time, I'm sure listeners to this podcast will know a lot about me, but let's kind of jump into your basketball story. So I'm going to break this into multiple questions, so don't feel like you need to answer everything at once. But the first thing I'd like you to kind of answer is if you could just give us a quick introduction to yourself. So who are you, where your basketball journey started, kind of the beginning chapters. So if you could just kind of start us off with that.
Yeah, so obviously my name is Brandy Huffhines. My basketball journey, I would say, started by the time I was a baby. My dad, he became the head coach for the girls basketball team at Redland High School in 1999, which that was the same year that I was born. He kind of took the job by default He was begged to take the job because they didn't have anybody there. He was originally a baseball coach, and he took the job in '99, and he still is the head coach there. So,
Oh, wow.
26 years later.
That's
and
extremely
so
impressive.
Yes, he's been there for a very long time. And so me and my two sisters, I have an older one and a younger one, we kind of just grew up in the life, hitching a ride to basketball practice, him taking us to games, him taking us to his practice. And then I think where it really started to get going for me, I think, because now I think you can be around 5 years old to start playing on an actual team. For me, I couldn't join an actual team until I was about 8 years old. So 8 was when I really started to play competitively in our local recreation leagues and whatnot. But I remember my dad always telling me, if you're coming to practice with me, you're going to practice. You're not just going to sit on the sidelines and do nothing or play with whatever. If you're coming to practice with me, you're practicing. And so I can still hear my dad tell me run up the court with the basketball with your right hand and come back with your left. And just keep doing it. Up with your right, back with your left. Being able to shoot layups or make layups with your right hand and then your left hand. And I don't know how many times he got me and my sister to do that over and over again. And so, like I said, so by the time I was 8, I joined my first team. And actually, I was not coached by my dad at that time. So kind of got to experience different people coaching me and whatnot. And then he coached me probably from the time I was in 5th, 6th grade. He developed a youth league and kind of a feeder program into Rolanda High School. And then coached me from there all the way up through my high school years. So I started pretty young. I'd say younger than most. I think a lot of kids start playing basketball between the ages of maybe 10 to 12. So I got a little bit of a head start there playing for my dad. I mean, as I said, he's been a coach for a long time now.
Okay, so it sounds like you had a lot of experience playing basketball with your father coaching you, both before you were allowed to play, sort of by default of going to practice with him. And it sounds like, correct me if I'm wrong, he was coaching another team, but you were just kind of at practice. So you were just on the sidelines, dribbling up and down, practicing your ball handling with your right hand, your left hand. Maybe there was an extra basket. You were shooting right-handed layups. You were shooting left-handed layups. So you had kind of a head start on anybody else, really, because you were practicing before many other young girls were probably even touching a basketball, if I had to guess, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And before we get into this further, I'd like to ask where our listeners can find you online and connect with you if they have any questions, if they want to follow you, if they want to reach out, if they want to talk to you about your story. Do you have any social media profiles or websites that people can kind of look at to connect with you?
Yes, I would say the easiest way to connect with me is through Instagram. So at brandy.huffhines. I'm very easy to find, just my first and last name. Not a lot of people have the last name Huffhines. So it's pretty easy to find.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I'll put that in the description for this episode so that people can have a link to click on and they can connect with you if they would like to.
Yeah, of course.
All right, perfect. So we kind of covered your younger years briefly. Sounds like it was pretty straightforward. You played youth basketball, then you played up through high school. And earlier off the air, you were telling me that, and again, correct me on any of this if I'm wrong, but after high school, it sounds like you were not being offered a scholarship to play at the college level. Despite that, you still found a way to play competitive basketball and kind of carve out a career for yourself in which you are still playing. So can you talk to me a little bit about high school basketball and not being offered a scholarship and the transition to what came right after high school?
Yeah. So starting in high school, I would say that I had a very decorated high school career. I was very successful at the high school level. And so I think that was one of the, other than the fact that I love basketball, because of my success, I felt like I could play at the Division I level. And that was a big goal of mine. That was a dream of mine. I know I feel like a lot of people want that for themselves. Everybody wants the D1 scholarship, and so I was one of those kids too. I wanted the D1 scholarship. And throughout my high school experience, even throughout my senior year, I had a few like schools contact me and a little bit of interest here, but no real scholarships offered. And they were all NAIA, small D2s back east, like maybe like in Virginia or wherever it was. Wasn't anything that was really like realistic, I guess, for me. And so obviously here in Sacramento, we have a lot of different junior colleges. And so I kind of made the decision towards the end of my senior year, if I didn't get what I wanted or that I felt like I deserved, I would just go junior college and basically bet on myself and try again in a couple of years. And so that's when Coach Julia Allender, she was the head coach at Sacramento City College at the time. She started to come to my games and would pull me off to the side, just introduce herself, so that she was a head coach. She really liked my game, was really interested in me and whatnot. And she was the first coach that when I told her that I wanted to play at the Division I level, she didn't even flinch. She just looked at me and was just, I believe you. I believe you can do it. I want to help you do that. And even other junior college coaches in the area, when I had mentioned that that was my goal, coaches were really quick to be like, oh, you're a little undersized. We'll see where you are in 2 years. You want to go somewhere where you'll play, not just sit the bench. And I remember thinking to myself, well, who said I was going to sit the bench? Like I work really hard, So Jules was the first person that she, like I said, it wasn't even a second thought. When I told her that that was my goal, she was like, let's do it. And so she was pretty much the driving force as to why I ended up going to a junior college and specifically playing for Sac City College for her. And she did what she told me she was going to do. She helped me in those 2 years. She was in the gym with me all the time, training me, helping me get better with my shot. Because at the time, I didn't really have that great of a three-point shot. She was helping me with my shots, making sure that my strengths remained my strengths, and then whatever weaknesses that I had to really hone in on them and make sure that whatever I needed to compete at the Division I level, I gained those skills. So she always tells me, like, you did the work, you deserved it, but I always, I give credit to her all the time, because I don't think without her I would have been able to continue my career at the Division I level like I had hoped and dreamed for. And so as much as I believed in myself, I think it was just as important having a coach that also believed in me to kind of continue that fuel to the fire. So she was a big part as to why I was successful at the junior college level and still continuing to play basketball at the D1 level after that.
Yeah, what was her name again?
Julia Allender. We all called her Coach Jules.
Okay. Shout out Julia Allender, correct?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Shout out Coach Jules. What made you bet on yourself in the first place during that time when nobody else was believing in you and when a bunch of coaches didn't seem to believe in you?
Honestly, I think I'm extremely competitive, and I have actually my older sister to give credit to that for. I don't know what it was about having an older sister that also played basketball. Even from a really young age, I remember wanting to just be better than her. And it's funny because we make jokes about it now, because she likes to say like, oh, well, I'm the reason why you're successful because you just want to be better than me. It's it's funny, but it was true. Anytime that I saw, her name's Amber, my older sister, anytime I saw Amber be successful at something or she got good at a new skill and I saw it, I was like, oh, now I have to be able to do that. And I was a lot younger. I'm 5 years younger than her. And so when I'm 8, she's 13. And so she's playing middle school basketball and I'm wanting to learn the skills that she has at the age of 8, And so I think that was kind of the beginning of, 1, my competitive edge, and 2, developing this little chip on my shoulder. Like I can do anything. I was convinced at a very young age that as long as I worked hard enough that I can achieve anything. And nobody was going to tell me different. And that kind of led into high school, me being competitive, again, having a chip on my shoulder. Because like I said, there was a lot of coaches, friends, teammates, even teachers at my high school that didn't really believe in the goals that I had for myself. All the same things. You're too small, you're too this, or, basketball isn't a career. Basketball is something that's a hobby or whatever. And so for me, I was just so driven by the idea of proving everybody wrong. Like I wanted to, like that was what was important to me. Later in my career, I realized that it was more important to prove myself right. Like I wanted to do this for myself, not for anybody else. But obviously as a young kid and a young teenager, I was just like, screw everybody. Like I'm going to do it regardless what anybody says. And so I think that kind of like fueled me to believe in myself, because it's like, if nobody else is, I'm going to. And then, like I said, when Jules finally was like one of the very few people that said that she did believe in me, it was kind of like, oh, this is kind of new. Like every time I bring this up to somebody, it's like, oh, I don't think you can do it. And so that was, I think, a real game changer for me. And then having multiple conversations with her about like why I'm doing this, instead of focusing on like trying to prove everybody else wrong. It's like, no, like if you believe in yourself, that's what matters. And if you believe that you can do it, or if this is something that you truly want, like this is what you want for yourself, not something that you're just trying to prove somebody else wrong, then that's worth your time. But if you're just doing it just because, so and so said you couldn't, well, that's not really reason to do it, And so I would say all of those things kind of just fed into just unwavering belief in myself that I could do it. And so, like I said, having Jules kind of adding fuel to the fire really helped. And before that, I think I was just kind of really hard-headed, like didn't want to believe anybody else. Like I'm going to do it and nobody else can tell me otherwise.
Talk to me a little bit about the arc of your college career. So you started at, was it Sacramento City College?
Yes.
Junior college. And then you played basketball at a couple of different programs. So walk me through kind of the arc of your college career.
Yeah. So I played 2 years at Sacramento City College. And then I was offered a D1 scholarship to Cal State Northridge, which I love the program. But unfortunately, within my first season, I ended up getting injured. And I remember it was in October of 2019. And it was a stress fracture to my left fibula, which at the time, I guess even the injury itself is just very rare. Most people, if they get a stress fracture, it's in their tibia, like the main shin bone. But mine was in the non-weight bearing bone. And so I was told that within 6 to 8 weeks, I'd be good. I'd come back and I'd be able to play. And then 6 to 8 weeks later, and I still couldn't walk. And I was just told that basically when your bones are recovering, they need impact to kind of build the calcium and like whatever it is to make the bone strong. And because that bone is non-weight bearing, there's not a lot of impact happening for the bone to heal. And so what was supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks of recovery ended up being 4 months. And so I ended up having to redshirt my first season at Northridge, which was obviously very heartbreaking because I wanted to play so bad. It was fine. I redshirted and I just figured that, just gave me a year to kind of get to know the system, get to know my coaches, my teammates, whatever. But then COVID happened in February, March of 2020. And we had just played our last game and then everybody got sent home. And then over that summer, nobody's on campus anywhere. People tried doing like a bubble situation. All that craziness and mess that happened during COVID. We ended up having a switch in coaches. Our head coach resigned and we got a new coach. And we ended up not having a season during COVID because not enough players were willing to come back and play, including myself. I hadn't mentioned it before, but I do have a heart condition. And so at the time with COVID being so uncertain, doctors and certain people in my life told me that maybe it wouldn't be such a good idea to go back and play because you don't know much about this virus and you don't know what could happen if you contract it. So I made the decision to opt out because of that. And that was also a very difficult decision for me to make. And then obviously that also puts me in a position where I haven't played in 2 seasons now. And then in February of 2021, I had a conversation with my head coach, new head coach, and she decided that she wanted to go in different directions, decided that she was not going to renew my scholarship for the following year. Told me that she had continued recruiting, and basically I didn't have a spot on the team anymore, which I didn't know until after talking to a few coaches that I guess it's not legal actually for them to do. Like you have to have a legitimate reason to kick somebody off or take scholarship away. And so I was told that I could fight it, like fight for my scholarship and fight for my spot on the team. But the mindset that I had at the time was, why would I fight for a spot on a team to play for a coach who doesn't want me or doesn't believe in me? And so I just felt like that was kind of a waste for me to try to fight for it when I can just transfer, go somewhere else. And so I decided to enter the transfer portal at that time. Graduated from Northridge too. So in 2021, I graduated with my undergrad degree in kinesiology. Entered the portal. Didn't really have a lot, not have a lot of options. So then I ultimately decided to walk on at Long Beach. And there was a lot of craziness that happened with Long Beach. Some broken promises, I'll say. And at first I thought it was good and I was transferring to a school. I felt like it was going to be a good fit for me at the time. Ultimately, it just wasn't. It wasn't a good fit for me mentally. There was a lot of players. I think at the time there was, 18 or 19 players on the team. It was just a mess. It wasn't a very good situation for me. And so I started to deal with a lot of performance anxiety, confidence issues, which obviously I do think kind of stemmed from what had happened before, from injuries, getting my scholarship taken away, all of those things. And so I just feel like I just wasn't in a good place mentally as it was. And then on top of some of the issues I did have at Long Beach, I ultimately had to take the year off because the stress kind of caused more issues with my heart condition. And so I had to take yet another year off from playing basketball. And so by the end of that season at Long Beach, it was 2022 or 2023. I lost track. 1920, 2021, 2022. Yeah, 2022, I think. I entered the portal again. And at this point, like I said before, I was just praying I was going to get something. Like I said about Coach Brian, I hadn't played in 3 seasons. And so I was just hoping that I can grab anything. At this point, I was not picky about D1, D2. I just wanted to play basketball. I was tired of sitting out. I was tired of not playing. And so Brian hit me up, asked me to come on a visit. And within, I'd say a week or so, I committed and then played my last 2 seasons at Chico State. And so I was in college for a total of 7 years. Got my undergrad degree at Northridge. I got my master's at Chico. And then I actually, because I was in a master's program at Long Beach and I completed 2/3 of that program, I recently went back and finished the last third of it. And so I got my second master's degree from Long Beach. So yeah, quite a story there, but in a very elongated college career.
Okay. Well, congratulations on finishing not 1, but 2 master's degrees and making it through all of those different experiences. You had an injury that took longer to heal than you expected it to. And so that was probably very difficult on you. And then COVID happened, which was very difficult on you, as it was for a lot of different people. And then you transferred to Cal State Long Beach, which was a totally different program. Sounds like maybe it wasn't run as great as it could be. You had some coaching changes in there. There was probably some broken promises about playing time and come here, play this, do that, etc. I'm not surprised that you suffered from performance anxiety and confidence struggles, given all of that, right? You probably weren't even sure that you could play or that you belonged or that you could recover from your injury. But all that aside, during that period of time, you had a lot of mental performance stress. And that, I didn't even mention just a second ago, the heart condition that you mentioned and how that was all impacting you. And right. You probably followed the story about Bronny James and how he had cardiac arrest at USC. So that's probably going on in the back of your mind. about, should I push it? Should I not? I love playing basketball. I identify as an athlete. What am I going to do if I don't? Like, all of this stuff is just like a whirlwind in your brain, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you working with anybody at the time to help you with this stuff? A mental performance coach, namely, or even some kind of therapist, or were you just trying to handle this all on your own?
Unfortunately, I tried to handle all this by myself. And looking back, I really wish I would have gone to somebody, because at the time, I guess for myself, I didn't think of it in a sense of this isn't impacting me that much. But then when I sit and I talk about it, I'm just like, yeah, I kind of went through a lot. I think for the average person, anybody would be struggling mentally with what the cards that I was dealt in a span of 3 years. And so
No doubt.
if I could go back and change anything, that would be the one thing. I wish I would have gotten the help sooner. I saw a sports psychologist once when I was dealing with my injury at Northridge, and that was great. She helped me kind of like learn how to identify myself outside of basketball, because I was struggling a lot with that. Because I felt like I was kind of there for no reason, waking up at 6 in the morning to go to practice to not practice, that was really frustrating for me. And so she kind of helped me figure out like things to do that gives me joy outside of basketball. And so that was really helpful. But when I was at Long Beach, I don't think they really had the resources, or at least they didn't really speak on them and let us know like what resources there were. And obviously I played a part in not really looking for it either. And then also too, I fell into the idea that maybe I'm just crazy. All of these things that are happening. Like I didn't deal with this when I was a teenager. When I was in high school, I didn't really have these issues as much. Obviously, like everybody always has a little bit of self doubt, or from time to time, but it just wasn't as much as what I was dealing with when I was at Long Beach. And so sometimes I would just sit back and think to myself, like, I know how to play basketball. I know what I'm doing. I've done this forever. I don't understand why I'm thinking the things that I am, or I don't understand why I'm not performing the way that I should. Like, just go out there and play. And then I'd try, and then it just wasn't working for me. And so there was an internal battle with myself, almost trying to convince myself that it wasn't real at the time, to try to like almost like put a band-aid over it and act like it wasn't happening. And so, like I said, if there was anything that I could change about my basketball career, because all the lessons and everything that I learned throughout, I wouldn't change a thing. My journey is my journey, and I wouldn't change it. But that is something that I wish my younger self would have seeked out for sure.
Okay. So talking about what you learned throughout all of this process, because I'm sure you've learned a lot of different lessons about teamwork and yourself and mental health and coaching decisions and your own decisions and all this kind of stuff. You've been in a lot of different situations. You've played for a lot of different teams. You've gone to a lot of different colleges. Some of those situations were much more supportive, like Coach Jules from earlier, and some of them were probably a lot more toxic. Coaches talking down to you, mistreating you, promising you playing time and then not, or taking away your scholarship. How have all of those variety of experiences impacted your mindset, your mentality, and what have you learned about yourself and your values during that? Because we're still kind of talking about the college time frame here. What have you learned about yourself and your values during that whole time?
I think the first thing that I learned about myself is that I must really love basketball. I've been told by a lot of people that if they were given the same journey or dealt the same cards, they probably would have quit. Just because it's a lot, and I wouldn't blame anybody if they were in my shoes, if they decided to step away, just because it was a lot to deal with mentally. And so like I remember even during COVID, after my scholarship was taken away, we had like an outdoor court, and obviously we couldn't get inside any gym during COVID, but we have an outdoor court, and I just remember even the day after I got my scholarship taken away, I was outside working on my game because I just wanted to make sure that I was going to give myself the best chance to play somewhere else, because I love basketball, And so no matter what I went through, Even at Long Beach, even when I was dealing with a lot of mental stress and the mental load of everything, I still was going to the gym on my own time, even if it was just a form shoot, even if it was just to get up some shots. There was never a moment in my career where I didn't love basketball. I always wanted to be around it. And so I realized for myself and just as an athlete in general, if you don't really love it, it's really difficult to put your best foot forward all the time. And I don't think every single college athlete or every single pro athlete, like you have to have a passion for it, have to have like this inner love for it to be successful or to work hard or whatever. But when it comes down to certain hardships, if you don't have a purpose or if you don't have a real love for it, a real reason why you wake up every day to do what you do, it makes it very difficult to enjoy your time as a college athlete. And so I learned that first and foremost. And I also learned that relationships are really important, which if I would have told myself when I was a teenager that was important, I'd probably be like, yeah, okay, sure. But through my time as an athlete in college, having a real support system, whether it's in your teammates, whether it's your coaches, your family, whoever it is, having somebody to remind you that like you're good, you're amazing, like you're working hard. Obviously being honest with yourself too, and people that love you are being honest with you as well. Like if you're not working hard, they should tell you. But in general, having a supportive, encouraging environment allows you to thrive. And you have to care about people. And even for me, like you have to care about your teammates, you have to care about your coaches, and then vice versa. Like your coaches have to care about you, your development as a player, your sanity as a person. All of those things. I think a lot of coaches and players tend to overlook it, but there's just so much more to life than basketball itself, which is like when I say it, it's funny because my younger self would disagree. Like everything is basketball, but it's more than that. And the relationships that you build and the people that are around you who love you and support you become really, really important, especially when you go through hard times. To have people to lean on and to uplift you. And you may not always have that, but when you have it, lean into it. And then also be that person for somebody else when they're struggling. So I feel like that was probably the main thing that I learned throughout my college career. Relationships are so important.
Okay. I want to ask you one more question about your college career. Then we'll have halftime, and then we'll move on to your post-college playing career. So the final question that I have for you about your college career is about your time at Chico State.
Okay.
You had a 3-year period where you did you even play you didn't play for 3 years across Northridge, Long Beach. You played a little bit?
So I played in a scrimmage game when I was at Northridge before I got injured, which was it wasn't like a real regular season game. It was a scrimmage, but I still count it. I mean, it was a game.
Sure.
And then I think I played in 3 games at Long Beach, but minutes were very, very limited. I obviously was not playing like myself. I was struggling, but a real full game, I didn't play for 3 years.
Okay. So let's just say you didn't really play for 3 years.
Right. Yeah.
To the capacity and to the ability and to the desire that you expected of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got to Chico. You had a fresh new opportunity. Talk to me about your experience at Chico, specifically what that comeback was like mentally and emotionally.
Yeah. So I remember my very first game playing for Chico. I was a nervous wreck. And I just felt like I didn't really know what to expect for myself. I wanted to be the best I possibly could be, but at the same time, I knew I hadn't played in a long time. And I remember like my family telling me, like, Brandy, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Like, just go out there, have fun. Don't think too much. Just go out there and play. And I think it's funny when people say, like, oh, just don't think. well, if I could do that, I wouldn't. I just go out there and just play. And I remember it was an exhibition. It was a real game, like, but it was an exhibition, so it didn't count towards our record or anything. And
It's like preseason kind of thing.
Yeah, it was the first game of the season, and it was against University of San Francisco. And I didn't start. He kind of threw out a random 5, and I remember immediately feeling like, oh my gosh, this is happening all over again.
Did you think you were going to start?
I didn't know. He told everybody that he was kind of just going to throw out a random 5, like not a legit 5, just a random 5. That it wasn't the like the 5 he was going to be with for the rest of the season, or like almost like he told us it didn't really matter. If he started, great. If he didn't start, like it's not that big of a deal. I knew that, but just the fact of me not starting. But I remember just sitting on the bench, and Brian ended up kept coming over and talking to me. He was like, you're fine, just play. Doesn't matter that you didn't start. Like, just take it as some time to just breathe, and then when I sub you in, just go out there and play. And so I finally got subbed in, and field goal percentage wise, I didn't play as great as I'd wanted to, but I just remember getting to my spots and getting obviously a way more opportunities to score and create and do all of these things that I love doing. And I hadn't had that feeling for years. And so I remember after the game, like kind of just having this like sense of relief that I'm like, wow, like I'm actually playing basketball again. And as much, like I said, I wasn't necessarily happy with my overall performance, but I was happy with the fact that I was just playing. And I got minutes. I was sweating. My jersey stunk. Like all those little things, I was just incredibly grateful for. And so I think that kind of led into, I mean, my first season at Chico, like I said, when people from the outside looking in, they think that I had like a great solid season. But there was games where I felt really good, and there's other times where the doubt would settle in and my confidence wouldn't be great. And, you know, all of those little things that I was struggling with before, they would kind of creep in and settle in. And so like, I would say that my career at Chico, it got better my second season, especially with one season under my belt coming back. But it was definitely mentally still kind of difficult. Like, yes, I was starting and yes, I was playing a lot, but at the same time, it was very easy for my brain to kind of just go into, well, you should be doing more, or you're not doing enough, or maybe you shouldn't take that shot. Maybe that wasn't a good shot. And so it was still kind of a mental battle, but it did help that obviously I just was playing. And Brian had a lot of confidence in me. My teammates had a lot of confidence in me. Just even having teammates to tell me, like, Brandy, keep shooting, was totally different for me. You know, being constantly reminded that I was being supported and encouraged by my teammates was a huge game changer, especially with the things that I had been dealing with prior to that. And so, like I said, I had a solid 2 seasons at Chico, but obviously a lot of things that I went through before, so I still battle with, and I still continue to combat it. I remember at one point, and I still kind of do this, not as much anymore. There was a time where I was scared to even go get the ball, because I knew if I had the ball, that I had to make a decision with it, whether to shoot it, pass it, drive it, whatever the case may be. And I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to miss. I didn't want to mess up. So I just shied away from the ball. And I got to a point where I just told myself that this is not going to make me better. You know, I have to just face the fear. And so I kind of started with small steps of like, okay, well, just go get it. Just go get the ball. You know, like if you find yourself in a position where you're scared, go ask for it. Go fill up, go ask for the ball, whatever it is. And then kind of those like small little like accomplishments, I guess, throughout like games. Nobody knew what was happening, but for me, like those were big jumps for me mentally, you know. And so yeah, just kind of like working through those mental hurdles through Chico, and still kind of like working through it now. So yeah, so overall at Chico though, I felt like I had like I said, a pretty decent career, and I'm happy with it. There's nothing that I would change about it. And so I had great coaches, great teammates. So my time at Chico was good.
Okay, excellent. We'll continue talking about the mental struggles that sounds like maybe are still a little bit present with your current professional career. But let's first take a little break for a moment from talking about things serious. We're going to talk about some fun things a little bit. We're at halftime now. We can think about it that way. So for the first halftime question that I have for you, this is a fun one here. You're hosting a basketball themed cooking show with 3 of your former or current teammates. What is the show called, and who is getting banned from the kitchen first?
My ex-teammate, Sophia. She was ex-teammate of mine at Chico. Ex-teammate of mine from my playing overseas in Malta, Haley, I would say is another one. And then it's kind of a toss-up between 2 ex-teammates of mine, also from Chico, probably Jasmine or Zane. All of them, they all love to be in the kitchen. They all like to chef it up.
Good friends of yours?
Yeah, pretty good friends of mine.
Okay.
Still talk, still stay connected and whatnot. I'm going to just say it. I mean, I already said it. It would be called Chef It Up.
Okay.
For sure. And out of us, I'd probably end up kicking myself out. Just because out of all of us, I am not the chef. I am not the greatest cook. I mean, I can cook. Obviously, I survived 7 years of college. I figured it out. But I would definitely not describe myself as like a chef. Where these teammates that I just named, like they genuinely like being in the kitchen. They genuinely like making things, creating things. I put together a sandwich and call it a day. Like I'm good.
Okay. Very functional with your cooking, but you're not winning any like awards or anything.
No, definitely not.
Okay. All right. But you're also probably not burning the kitchen down either. You're not going to like light a pan on fire.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Okay.
I can
all right. Okay. All right, cool. All right. Next question. There is a surprise karaoke challenge during halftime. I think I probably already know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it anyways. You're up first on the karaoke deck. What song are you belting out, and are you crushing it, or is it going to be a disaster?
Oh, I have one of my favorite songs actually is Reminder by The Weeknd. And I love that song. I sing my heart out every time it plays, but it would totally be a disaster. It would definitely be a disaster. But I love that song. So yeah, for sure I would sing karaoke to that.
Okay. You know what? Sometimes a lot of karaoke is just like how much effort you put into it.
Right.
And it might still be a disaster, but at least still it's entertaining, right?
Oh, I'd for sure be entertaining. It would just be pretty disastrous.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's fair. Okay. Next question. Your basketball shoes give you a new ability every time you lace them up. What is your dream or weirdest game day superpower that you would get from your shoes?
Oh, I would say like crazy hops. Like I'm really short. Really short for basketball.
How tall are you, by the way?
I'm 5'5".
5'5", and you play point guard. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
So for the average basketball player, like I'm short. You know, getting to the rim isn't always the easiest without getting your shot blocked. So being able to jump really high, that I would really love that.
Okay, so you could just like jumping
over people.
Yeah.
To dunk at 5'5", I think that'd be incredible. Like
that'd be insane.
That'd be exactly.
How tall is the shortest point guard in the WNBA? Do you happen to know?
I actually don't, but I do know. For instance, Ari McDonald. She's 5'5". I want to say 5'5", 5'6". There have been a few guards in the league. I think Mariah Jefferson. She's 5'7". There's another one. I'm blanking on her name. Her last name's like McCarty. I think she's like 5'5". There's definitely been smaller guards in the league who are roughly around like my size. But typically, the smallest guards in the league are probably between 5'5" and 5'8". Probably more leaning towards the 5'8" side is what, like even I think Kelsey Plum, when you see her on the screen, she looks small, but she's 5'8". So yeah, I would probably say 5'5" is probably the shortest.
Okay.
I'm right there with
it's often difficult to tell when you're watching WNBA or NBA on TV because let's say take NBA for example, they all look kind of like average height because they're all about the same height, but all of them are like 6'6" on average, 6'7", 6'8".
Right.
It's only until you see them standing next to a fan or the refs or their coach where you're like, oh, wait a minute. Like they're
really, really tall.
they're
Yeah.
really friggin' tall. So yeah, it's probably like that in the WNBA too. I mean, I'm sure obviously women are shorter, but the average height of a player in the WNBA is still probably 6 feet at least, 6'1".
I'd probably say like 6 feet tall for sure.
Yeah, at least.
At that height, you have guards that are 6 feet tall. You have power forwards that are 6 feet tall. Like at 6 feet, you could pretty much almost play at any position in the WNBA. So I would probably say that's probably accurate.
Okay. All right. Next question. Very basic one. Who is your celebrity crush and why?
It's a great question. To be honest, I don't really fangirl over a lot of people, but if I saw Sue Bird, I think I would lose my mind. Like, she would probably be my ultimate celebrity crush because I would do anything to talk to her, to have dinner with her, pick apart her mind. I'd definitely say Sue Bird. I even have her jersey. It was a gift, and I cherish that like no other.
Game worn or?
No, not game worn. I wish, but just a green Seattle Storm jersey, bird on the back. I love it. It's one of my favorite things in the world.
Okay, cool. Have you ever met any WNBA players?
I've actually met Nafisa Collier once. When I was at Cal State Northridge. And I think Candace Parker too. They came to just work out at Northridge, and so that was really cool to meet them. But I think those are the only ones that I've actually officially met. Yeah, nobody else. I've gone to WNBA games, but never actually met the players. But meeting Nafisa Collier and Candace Parker, and even just watching them work out was really cool.
That is cool. Well, I think that someday that you could meet Sue Bird if you really wanted to. I'm sure you could make that happen. She seems like a very personable woman. So
yeah, absolutely. Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Last question of halftime here, and then we're moving on. You get a one-time only cheat code to use during a game. One time only. What ridiculous but semi-legal cheat code, or cheat move are you pulling off just to mess with the other team?
I'd probably say it's a double dribble, but it's like when you do it right, it is legal. It's like a hezzy, and you look like you're going to shoot it, but you put the ball back down, defense kind of stabs at it. If you could actually touch the ball, two hands come on it to shoot it, obviously the defense is going to think that you're going to shoot it, and then you can just dribble again. If you can get away with it, yeah, I don't think anybody's guarding that. But obviously it's not legal. But if it was, that'd be pretty killer.
Yeah.
If I can get away with it, yeah.
Yeah. I think guys like Steph Curry have kind of mastered that where they kind of dribble and they kind of I'm not going to do a great job doing this on camera, but they kind of bring it close and then dribble again. And obviously best shooter in the history of any league ever. Right. So it's you got to get close. Otherwise he's going to, even then he's probably still going to make it.
Yeah.
I think there was this one clip, actually, it might've been when the Cavs were playing the Warriors in the finals one year. There was this famous clip of Curry doing that and LeBron's guarding him. And he either gets away with a double dribble. I'm pretty sure he gets away with a double dribble. If you know the clip I'm talking about, and cause it looks like his other hand touches it and then he dribbles around LeBron and makes a layup.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what you're talking about, where it's if you could actually do that, it would be you'd be roasting people.
Yeah, exactly. So that'd be a killer move. It's a killer move even without actually touching the ball. I think you can do it really well, like Steph Curry does. But it's a difficult move to master. So if you could touch the ball, it'd be killer.
For sure. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the second half of our kind of main slate here. We're going to talk about your professional career a little bit now. You had an eventful college career, and then that ended with you playing 2 years at Chico State.
Yes.
Then you decided to move on. You graduated with your master's degree from Chico State, and you decided to play professional ball. So walk me through a little bit about like that transition. How did that transpire, and where did you end up playing first?
Yeah, so I think playing at the professional level has always been a dream of mine. And so I knew whenever my college season was over, that was something that was next for me. I didn't really know what it looked like, how to go about it. After my senior season ended at Chico, I was kind of just lost. I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know where to start, where to go. So I immediately just started hitting up all of my ex teammates that I knew played overseas. So a couple from Northridge, a couple from Long Beach. I just started hitting up as many people that I could to figure out what their journey looked like, how they started to play overseas, and then kind of go from there. I was contacted by a guy who runs this thing called Eurobasket, and he invited me to come out to a pro showcase in Cleveland, Ohio, called the Final Four, because that's where NCAA was hosting their Final Four games. And so he was saying how a lot of people that want to play overseas, they're going to be there, coaches, WNBA scouts, pro scouts, a bunch of people were going to be there. And so I took the risk and I went out to Cleveland, Ohio, and played in kind of like this showcase to basically just kind of play pickup with a bunch of other women that have dreams and goals to play overseas as well. And so they kind of like clipped it, like clipped your highlights, I guess, for you, and they sent it to you. I didn't really know what I was going to get out of it. I mean, I kind of just went hoping I'd get something. One of my teammates from Long Beach, she told me that she ended up going to something like that, happened to get an agent that way. And so she was kind of the reason why I was like, I mean, might as well. So I went to that, didn't really hear anything from anybody after a couple weeks. I think at this point it was maybe April. Yeah, right, April. That's when I went, leading into May. I still didn't have an agent. I didn't really know where to go. I started hitting up even like old coaches, like the original coach who recruited me to go to Northridge, because I knew that he had a lot of connects and I knew he'd be willing to help. I just started messaging a bunch of people. I just didn't really know what to do. And then luckily I finally get this random call from some man in Ohio and said that he was an agent, a FIBA agent, and he saw my film from the Eurobasket showcase. He liked my game and he wanted to represent me. And what was funny about that was the first couple of conversations we had, I did not like him very much. I thought he was rude. I thought he was just, just rude. I didn't really like the way that he was talking to me, talking about the process of playing overseas and kind of almost making it seem like I wasn't serious enough to commit to playing overseas. And then after talking to my ex-JC coach, Coach Jules, and my family about it, they all kind of told me the same thing. Well, maybe he's just trying to fill you out as much as you're trying to fill him out. Maybe he's just, because he doesn't know you. He doesn't know how serious you're taking this. You're a stranger. And so maybe he's just coming off in a way on purpose to see like how serious you are. And so I was kind of like, okay, that's valid. So then I think we ended up having a couple more conversations, and I tried to like look past the kind of the crudeness of the way he was coming off and more or less just what he was saying. And ultimately he was just very honest. He was very honest about the process. He was honest about the reality of maybe like not getting paid very much your first season, where you'll play, all of these things. And so then I decided that I trusted that the idea that I'd rather sign with an agent who's going to be brutally honest with me instead of somebody who's just going to stroke my ego, make it seem like it was this fluffy, great thing playing overseas. So I decided to sign with him. And it was funny because once I signed with him, he completely flipped like a 180. Now he was calling me every couple of weeks, just checking in on me, asking me if I was like how I was doing. He watched my games in the WPBA, the same league that I'm playing in the summer. He's very supportive, very, like I said, very encouraging. He always reminds me of how good I am. Like he loves the way that I play and whatever. And so it was just very interesting to see like how he was before he signed me to how he is with me now. And like I mentioned before, like having relationships is really important. And I didn't really expect to have one with my agent. And now I do have one with my agent. I think I got lucky in that way to have somebody that genuinely thinks that I'm good enough. He believes in me, and he's doing his best to get me in places that I want to go. So I do think that I got lucky in that way. And so then he was the one. Basically, the way it goes is that once you get an agent, they do all the dirty work for you. You kind of sit back, you make sure that you stay in shape, you're working out, you're making sure that you're on top of, like staying in the best shape possible, making sure that your game is sharp, all of those things. And he goes out, or she, whoever your agent is, they go and talk to clubs, coaches, whatever, and they speak for you. They speak on your behalf. And so it wasn't until I think June, July, he called me about an opportunity to play in Malta, which I had no idea what country that was. And it's this very, very tiny country off the coast of Italy and Sicily. It's the size of that country is about the same size as Sacramento itself. Like, that's how small it is. And the first thing that he told me, he was like, they speak English there, which I was so happy to hear because, some people you talk about their stories playing overseas. Sometimes it's great experiences and sometimes they're horror stories, and so it can be kind of scary, picking up your life and just moving to another country, especially a country that may not know English, and you're the foreigner, you're the person who's trying to navigate everything. And so it can be a very scary process. But to hear that the Maltese people speak English was like music to my ears. And thank God I can speak to people. They can help me, all of those things. And so I ended up signing just a 1-year deal with my team was called Cafe Moak Luxel. It was Luxel. We were purple. And so I played 1 season with them. So that was kind of the process of me finding a team. Like I said, I was first finding an agent first and then allowing him to kind of just do the work for me and kind of just hoping and praying that something popped up and something did. So.
Okay. And how many professional seasons have you played now then? Just the one or more than one?
Just the one. So I guess playing in the WPBA, the league that I'm playing in now, is considered pro. So I played in that over the summer, last summer. The season is very short. It's only 8 games long. 8 games, 8 weeks. Then there's like a end of the season tournament, and then you're done. So like total of like 9, 10-ish weeks, I think. So I played in that. So I guess that was considered like my first pro season, and then went straight into playing in Malta. I was in Malta from September until the end of March, and that was like my first real overseas season. And then now I'm going into my second season with the WPBA this summer. And our, first game is tomorrow. So.
Okay. And you must be excited about that.
Yes, I am.
Are you with the same WPBA team as before?
Yes, same team.
Okay.
Titans.
And you're living, where is that team? Where are you now?
So I'm currently living in Sacramento. So I make the commute out to the Bay Area for practice and for games.
Okay, that's 2 or 3 hours, right?
We practice and play in Oakland, which is on like the outer part of the Bay. So it's about an hour and a half. So I don't have to go too deep into the Bay Area. It's on the outside. So usually about an hour and a half. With traffic, it could take up to 2 hours, but usually hour and a half.
Okay.
Just too bad.
And that's paid gig?
No, actually. In Malta, that was paid.
Oh, that was paid. Okay.
PA is not paid. Like I said before, the league is still developing. I'm hoping probably in the next couple of years the players can get paid. I think for this season there's opportunities for players to get paid. I think like for ticket sales, if they use a certain, like if they tell you the name of the player you're coming to watch, I think we get a certain percentage of that or something along those lines. But getting paid like monthly or weekly or whatever, like a contract, like an overseas contract, the league's not there yet.
Okay. So do you work another job then, or is basketball like a full-time thing and you're just kind of figuring out the finances one way or another?
Yeah. So obviously from September till March, I was getting paid playing in Malta, but I also started working as a substitute teacher because in the local school district that I work in, the substitutes actually get paid pretty well. And so I kind of just pick up days where I can to make a little bit of money here and there. Obviously just to live. The overseas life isn't for everybody. It's not very stable. And sometimes you're not necessarily playing. There's some players that do play year round that sign contract after contract after contract. Like there was potentially an opportunity for me to play in Australia right after I was done playing at Malta. But like the season kind of overlapped and I wouldn't be able to get to Australia by the time like our season ended. And so the timing didn't work, but I could have potentially been Australia. But I was really homesick anyways. So I kind of, even if I could go to Australia, I probably would have decided to go home anyways because I miss my family and everybody. Being away for that long and with the time zone being so drastic, for me, it was 9 hours. And I'm very family oriented. I'm my family's everything to me, and so that part was difficult. So, but there's a lot of players that they sign contract back to back, like they're continuously playing all the time year round. They're constantly getting paid. But for somebody like me, obviously, I'm not playing right now. Well, I'm playing in the PBA, but I'm not on a real professional contract getting paid monthly. And so I have to find other ways to kind of make money for the time being. I know for this month and next month, I'm working a couple like basketball camps, just grinding here and there, basically. So again, not for everybody.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself outside of being an athlete? Because earlier you referenced at a certain point, you kind of realized that there is more to you than just being an athlete. Although younger Brandy would have vehemently disagreed with that and said, well, no, there's only basketball. Yeah. But as you've gotten a bit older and you've matured a little bit more and you've been through injuries and setbacks and transferring and overseas and back, and you realize you're playing professionally now, but everybody's got an end to their career at some point, whether they retire from age or injury or whatever else it is. You'd like to coach in the future, but generally speaking, you've learned that there's more to you outside of just being an athlete. So what have you learned about yourself outside of being an athlete over the last, I don't know, few years?
Yeah, so they kind of go hand in hand with being an athlete, but what I've realized about myself is that I am a workhorse. Whatever it is that you put in front of me, I'll always put my best foot forward. I'm this type of person, no matter if it's school, basketball. I'm actually starting to pull this into my relationships with my family. Just basically always putting my best foot forward to being the best aunt I can be, the best sister I can be, the best girlfriend I can be. Always thinking in that way, to be there for other people. Just doing my best no matter what it is. Like that's who I identify as, and that's obviously more than just basketball. And like I said, as of recently, I've really, really tried to hone in with like my relationships, learning how to be like an active listener, being there presently when someone's speaking to you, apologizing even when you feel like you didn't do anything wrong, but you still hurt somebody's feelings. Like just trying to be the best human being possible. And I think I learned that through basketball. And then also something through basketball that I learned is that I'm a quite resilient person. And so no matter what life throws at me, no matter at what point, whether it's basketball related, family related, whatever, I know that I can get through it, and not just get through it, but also thrive as long as I continue to believe in myself and put in the work for it. I can manage and get through anything. And so I would say those two things about myself I'm proud of, and two things that I've learned in depthly about myself that really represent who I am as a person.
So you would say that you learned a lot of those skills sort of through basketball and through your participation in sports, but they've really translated into the larger scope of life, generally speaking.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. What mindset tools or habits have you used over the past, I don't know, few years or over the course of your college and professional career to help you deal with the pressures and setbacks of competitive basketball?
Mm-hmm. So one of the first things I started to really dive into was kind of meditation. But I realized kind of like sitting there and trying my best to be present was not always, I didn't really work for me. And so I started to do yoga. I love yoga. Not only like obviously is it good for you like physically, whether you're stretching, your mobility, all of those things. But for me, I just realized when I'm doing yoga, I'm not thinking about anything else. Like I'm just kind of just in the moment doing whatever it is that the instructor is telling me, or if I have like a YouTube, like, I don't know, video playing for me to follow. I've realized that that really helps me just be present in what I'm doing. And so that has really helped me kind of translate that to basketball, because when I was younger, I didn't really have that problem with being present when I was playing basketball. But now, because of the experience that I've had, sometimes it's difficult for me to kind of just live in that moment. And yoga in itself has allowed me to kind of just practice what that feels like and be able to translate it to basketball. Another skill that I utilize a lot is visualization. It's become kind of like a pregame habit that kind of starts like the day before, and then it kind of feeds into the day, like game day, just because I do have some like pregame anxiety that I experience because I get nervous. But I like to think of myself just being on the court, kind of the motion of my shots, just having all these feelings that of just playing, like seeing myself out there, seeing myself shoot, seeing the ball go in. And like it kind of just builds a level of trust in myself. That I can go out there and do all these things that I'm imagining. Handling the ball, what does the ball feel like? How does the ball feel when I cross it over? How does it feel when I shoot? All of those things have really, really helped me overall with my anxiety before games, and then also just my confidence in myself. I talk to myself a lot more now than I ever have, especially because for me, I just have to remind myself that I've been playing this game since I was 8. I didn't just lose the ability to be good overnight. Like, I'm going to go out there, do my best, and that's all I can ask of myself. Everything else will kind of just play out. I don't have to force it. I don't have to overthink it. Just act like you've been doing it your whole life, because you have been, And so I constantly reminding myself of that. Like, I don't have to try too hard, Like, I know what I'm doing. I know how to shoot. I know how to dribble. I know how to do all of those things. So just relax and just believe that all these things will just come out as you go. You don't have to force anything. So I talk to myself a lot in that way. And then lastly, I kind of go back and forth with it. I haven't been super consistent, but I'd like to be, is a gratitude journal. I started it when I was at Chico, and then I kind of fell off from it. And I started again when I was at Malta, and then I kind of fell off from it. But I realized that just starting your day with the level of just being grateful kind of puts me in the state of mind of like, I'm just kind of just grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful for the experience. I'm grateful for my legs that work. I'm grateful for my fingers and my hands that allow me to shoot. Like, it puts me in a different mindset where like the expectation almost kind of goes away. And I'm just happy to have the ability to play basketball, because there's so many other things in life that are important to me. For instance, it's funny, like when I get sick, I hate being stuffy. And every time I get sick and I'm stuffy, I'm like, I'm never grateful for when I'm not stuffy. Like and so just something simple as that. Waking up today, being grateful that I can breathe through my nose. Just very little things that I think we take for granted really helps with my mindset for basketball. So those few little things have really helped me a lot.
Okay, so I heard you say, essentially, I think the first thing was mindfulness. Mm-hmm. So not necessarily meditation, although mindfulness and meditation can sometimes go hand in hand, but yoga helps you to be a little bit more present in the moment, not really thinking about anything else because you're just thinking about the yoga that you're doing right there.
Right.
So that was the first one. Then I heard you say visualization is a big one. So visualizing game day, starting the day before, helps you kind of reduce your anxiety and live some of the moments maybe ahead of when they're happening, imagining the environment, the fans, your crossover, your shot, these kind of things help you with your mental performance. Then you said, essentially, I think self-talk, right? You kind of talk to yourself about different things, hopefully positively. Hopefully you're catching yourself if you're saying anything negative to yourself, and then kind of rewiring that train of thought to, but I can do this instead, for example. And then the last one was a gratitude journal, namely. So those 4 things, it sounds like, have been pretty instrumental in helping you perform both on the court and also maintain your mental health and stress and anxiety off the court. Did I kind of summarize that pretty well?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Now I want to talk about the next generation or other athletes, right? Because you've been through a lot. You've been through injuries, you've been through transfers, you've been through being overlooked from coaches, you've been feeling like not wanted, anxiety, stress, homesick, overseas, college, professional. You've been through basically it all, right? You've been through it all. What advice would you give to athletes, younger athletes of really any, gender, male, female, any generation, but younger athletes? What advice would you give to athletes who are feeling overlooked, doubting themselves, or feeling ready to quit? Because I know you said earlier that you have resilience and you have always had that chip on your shoulder, but maybe there's been times that you felt ready to quit. So what advice would you give to athletes who are kind of going through it? You went and might be feeling that way.
When you're going through something like I have in the past, where I felt like maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it's time for me to like hang it up. Maybe it's time for me to quit, essentially. I put my purpose for why I do it above all. And so for me, and it's going to be different for everybody, but for me and my purpose is, one, I absolutely love basketball. I love playing it. I love teaching it. I love watching it. I love everything about basketball. But aside from that, because sometimes there are days where the ball is just not going in, or I keep fumbling it in practice, and I absolutely hate the sport because nothing is going right for me. My purpose is, one, the little girl that was 8 years old, that all she ever wanted to do was play basketball. I always think of her. I actually have a picture of myself when I was 8 for my first season when I started playing basketball. And I remember when I look at her, it reminds me of I started playing basketball just for the simple joy of it, not because of whether or not the ball went in, not because whether or not I was good at dribbling. I just loved every aspect of the game, both good and bad. And so I play the game for her, first and foremost. And another reason why I play and I continue to push myself beyond my limits is my family. I look to them for support and encouragement always, but also too, I have a little niece and I have a little nephew. I have a younger sister. She's only 3 years younger than me, but I've always just felt like if I can show them that I can do it, even when faced with adversity, even when faced with challenges, and I still am able to push through, come out on top, still thrive, I'm a constant reminder for them that when they go through something, that they can get through it as well. They can handle anything that comes their way. And so for me, obviously, these are very deep-rooted whys for me. And I think for anybody that's going through a hard time, you really need to sit down and think to yourself, why am I doing this? Why do I care about getting a D1 scholarship? Why do I care about playing basketball or soccer or whatever it is? And really figure out what your why is and how important it is for you. I think ultimately that is what our driving force is for everything. And so that would probably be the main advice I would give. And then if your why is that important to you, then sometimes you just have to suck it up and just get the work done. Like there was plenty of times where I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't want to go get an extra lift in. I didn't want to do certain things, but reminding myself of why it's important to me made me roll out of bed and be like, oh, okay, I'll go, So yeah, that would be the biggest advice I could give.
So ultimately just basically reconnecting with your why. Why did you start? And also, why are you doing this right now?
Right. Because also I do have a firm belief that your why can change. And sometimes things may not serve you in ways that you had hoped. And so like, if something genuinely makes you happy and you love it, then the roller coaster ride is worth it. But I mean, ultimately, if something's genuinely not fueling your happiness and it's not fueling your soul, like you just don't feel good about it, then it could be maybe time to maybe change your path. And there's nothing wrong with that either, But I think ultimately, if you care enough and you love it enough, your why will bring you back to that.
Well said. Well, Brandy, I really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today and share your experiences. You've been through a lot, and I really appreciate you sharing your experiences, the highs and the lows, the goods and the bads of everything that you've been through. It's been very informative and it sounds like you've got a good head on your shoulders. You're very resilient. I have no doubt that young Brandy would be extremely proud of you, as I'm sure your younger sister and your niece and your nephew are extremely proud of you and look up to you. So first and foremost, I want to thank you for taking the time, for being here and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate you having me, for sure.
Of course. Absolutely. Before we wrap up, I would just wanted to ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to share with me or with athletes, the podcast at large, anybody who might be struggling right now, whether it's, if you want to talk about like recommending a mindset shift, a gentle reminder for anybody, or just a little real talk about anything. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
I'll leave with, as long as you believe in yourself and as long as you put in the work, you can achieve anything that you set your mind to, despite what anybody else says. I think with the journey that I've had, I did have a lot of people that doubted me or told me I couldn't do it and whatnot. What matters most is what you believe. And as long as you believe in yourself, and obviously don't just believe in yourself and like not put in the work, it's got to be both. Because you don't put in the work, well, then at that point, you just kind of cross into being delusional, But if you believe in yourself and you put in the work for it, whatever it is, whether it's basketball, whether it's becoming an astronaut or the best doctor or surgeon, if you have that utmost belief and faith in yourself and you match that with your work ethic, anything is possible. I'm a firm believer of that.
Okay. Well, you're living that. You're living proof of that. So you bet on yourself early on in your career, and I don't want to say haters, but the doubters, you're certainly proving the doubters. There's probably some haters in there along the way too. Let's be honest. But you're certainly proving the doubters wrong, whoever they may be. And you're doing great things with your career. I have no doubt that you will continue to do great things with your career in the future, whether that's a professional basketball player or when you go on to be a coach. You have a whole host of life experiences and basketball experiences that are part of your belt right now. And you got a good head on your shoulders, and you're going to do great things in the future.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your kind words. It means a lot.
Absolutely. I mean every word of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for now, we'll sign off. I want to thank you again for taking the time, for being here. And I wish you best of luck in the future, and we'll be in touch. We'll chat again soon.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Bye-bye, Brandy.
Bye.